I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, March the 29th, 1916. And I had a mama there in 1918 who died at her age was, I think, 1918 she died with that epidemic that they had there. So then they moved on to Wilson, and there's a picture up there that's interesting. That's me in that goat cart there, age 2. And the goat would pull us all around the yard. And I was 2 years old. The goat was 4 years old. And we left Wilson and ended up down here in Georgetown. But I'd go from family, I think I was an orphan. I'd go from family to family as they died, and I'd move on to the next one when they died. So they moved me up to, where'd I go, Wilson, I guess, and stayed there 4 or 5 years old. They took that picture up there. That picture is 92. I hate to tell you, I'm 90, no, that ain't right, I'm 93. And so that picture there is 91. That's an old picture. And I got down there and I was unlucky at the age of 3. I lived with grandmama, who was my daddy's mother, and 3 old maid aunts. And none of them looked particularly pretty, but they made me eat the damn okra, fried okra, and I despised it. So that went on. Finally got down here at the age of 9, I believe, and went to school. And for some reason, they transferred me from there to Wilson. And then I stayed there for a year, and then they died, and they sent me on down to Pelelieu. And that was a mistake. I stayed here in Georgetown for a year. I think I was 9 years old. And those people out there, Pelelieu was just a country place in the country home. And I came up and stayed with an aunt of mine in Georgetown, Bill Johnson, for a year, I guess. And she died, and then I went back to Pelelieu and stayed there until I went off in the service. I think I went in the service within a month or 2 after the war started at 41. It had been 42, I guess. I went to Charleston and tried to register down there, and they wouldn't take me on account of this burn that I got when I was in Wilson at age 2. I stayed in the hospital for a year up there, getting over that. And I don't know why they wouldn't take me other than that scar on the side. So I had my tugboat down there, and I knew Admiral who had a submarine up in Charleston. So I took my boat and went up to Charleston, North Charleston. I was down at the city marina down there. And asked this fellow, as a friend of mine, and he was Admiral on that submarine. And I told him, I said, I'm certainly disappointed. He said, disappointed about what? I said, you're the luckiest person that I know of. I said, yeah, but I made my own luck. There ain't no such thing as luck. You have to make your luck. He laughed. He said, what can I do for you? I said, well, you could just sign me up. I want to go in the Navy. And he said, there's no problem with that. He picked up the phone and he called his fellow he knew, George, down there at the city marina, and said, I got a friend of mine up here. I want you to sign him up for me. And he said, you don't have to do anything but give him his clothes and he'll be on his way. All right, he said. So he sent me down there, and sure enough, the fella handed me the shoes and the coat and the clothes and all that. And they put me on a shrimp boat, and I was in the Navy then. I got signed up. And I went on and stayed down there for about 6 months, and then they decided they would have an amphibious force in the Navy. So they signed me up for the I think I got in the third for some reason, got in the third, and he got people from different states to come into thing. Journey took one person out of each one. And he gathered these 50 people at Camp Bradford up in Virginia, and they were in the 3rd Beach Battalion, and they got formed. We stayed up there about a month getting organized. They put us on a train one night, and we heard we were going to Africa. That was the first part of the war. And they got about halfway up to Portsmouth, and the police came on there, and they said, "We're looking for Hazzard, J.D. Hazzard." I said, "That's me." "What do you want?" She said, "Get your gear and come with us." They stopped the train, and they put my family off this thing with those 2 policemen. And I said, what have you got me charged with?" And they said, "You going back to Portsmouth." So they put me in the Jeep and carried me back down to Bradford. And there I stayed for 2 or 3 days, and they put me in formed another group. They finished forming the 3rd Beach Battalion. They got on the train and sent us to, all these things happened at nighttime. They sent us down to Camp Bradford. We were in Camp Bradford. They sent us to Pierce, Fort Pierce in Florida. We stayed down there and got organized pretty well. And then they sent us back about a month. The only thing that I got down there was got my tonsils sticking out. Had a mishap with one night with a buddy of mine, that's AC, my wife's brother was there, AC Proctor. And we got to drinking out there one night and didn't have anything else to do. And I had too much to drink and felt like I was going up chop. And he said, "Well, let me help you." And he got some pine needles over a tree there on the bridge, and he said, "Open your mouth." And he shook the thing down my throat. And I up-chucked and got home, and the next morning my mouth was like that, all swollen up. And he said, "You got to take this fellow to the hospital, something wrong." Took me up to, I forgot what hospital it was. It was up the road about 50 miles. Got me up there, and they all got together, 6 or 7 doctors. They said they ain't never seen nothing like that. The damn thing was 50 holes in my tonsils. So what they do, took the tonsils out. It's the only vacation I had. I was in the damn thing. So then we went on and got up to Fort Pierce. We were in Fort Pierce, and we went on up to Camp Bradford, and they put us on the ship up there. And we went on to the West Coast, went through the canal, on that whole outfit. And they had nothing but fur-lined boots and heavy winter clothing and all that. And they took that and got it all on the ship. This was a transport ship. There's thousands of people. And we went on to the West Coast, and they carried all that heavy equipment and went to the South Pacific. You didn't need any of it. And we got down there and stayed for 2 years. And I think it's in there if y'all want to look it up. I believe it was 16 invasions in mostly all that was in the South Pacific. And we finally got hit with a Japanese bomber at up there, Luzon. And that was the end of me traveling around. He sent me on. I got shell-shocked out there, and they sent me to the hospital in Portsmouth, Virginia, where I stayed. And there's a thing right there, I think it's that first one, where Admiral, what is that damn name?
Wilkerson?
Wilkerson. Admiral Wilkerson was in Portsmouth Hospital. And he called me in there. He didn't call me, but the people who was looking after me called me in there and said, "Admiral wants to talk to you." I said, "Talk to me about what?" I've been in the damn hospital about a month there, and nothing. They were just watching my actions and watching this and that and the other. So anyway, I went in and said, He called me Hazzard by first name. I had never seen the man before. He says, Hazzard, we got a medal for you. He said, we were very proud of it. And went on to say just what a wonderful job I'd done helping save this barge load of ammunition, which I won't tell you all about that. It's in there if y'all want to read it, what I had done. And I never saw him again until I got to Portsmouth. And I get to Portsmouth in the hospital. Here he is. And he didn't give me the medal, that Silver Star. He gave me a citation, and he signed it. And blessed Pat, I go back to my quarters, stayed there. And the next day they came in there and he says, we want you to attend so-and-so's funeral. I said, what the hell do you mean the Fed saying there's a funeral? I said, I was talking to him yesterday, and he said, yeah, but he got drowned. After he left that Portsmouth office, he was going, he's in Norfolk. He left the Norfolk office and he was going home. He stayed at Portsmouth, and he ran off the damn ferry boat and drowned. That was the end of him. That was the day after I got the letter from him. And that was the end of that. And then they called me up there and wanted me to go to the awarding of medals. They wanted me to go stand in front of the place and get my medal. And I said, no, I ain't going. They said, what do you mean you ain't going? I said, I had enough to do with them. I don't do another damn thing. And they came back and said, well, Mr. Hazzard, we got it in a bad predicament. And I said, what's that? They said they want everybody there. They want 100% present at that ceremony. I said, well, you go back there and tell them I'll go if they promise to give me my discharge after they give me the medal. Yeah, we'll have to see about that. So they came back the next day and said, that's agreeable, we'll do that. So I got my medal, and I didn't even look at it. I put it in my pocket and went over there and got my clothes all up, and I got the hell out of there. I left. I stopped and got my papers discharged. That's the best papers I ever had in my life. That was the end of that. I went in with the 1st Marine Division at Pelelieu. And Pelelieu was maybe halfway down the list, a little bit more of invasions. And they were in the Pacific, and they had 40,000 Japs on this little island. And it wasn't much bigger than that little island over there, though 3 or 4 times that big. And we sent in, or we took in, 1,000 troops fixed up for that invasion. They said that there were 40,000 Japs on Pelelieu, and they didn't want one prisoner, not to take anybody. So we went in there, and the Japs were well prepared for that 1st Marine. They were hidden in on the beach, was about that tall, about 2 feet, I guess. And we got in there without any opposition. We had a LVP. You carried 36 troops. And our job was to get those troops in there and pick up the wounded ones and get them back to the ship. And back and forth, back and forth. So they got along pretty well for up to the 3rd wave. They'd go in, several ships had people, and they were going in, thousands of them, to kill those 40,000 Japs. Well, that went on all day and all night, the next day and the next night. And we stayed there for 12 days and 12 nights. That was the longest time we'd ever been on a thing. We had no water. And we tried to drink that water out of those tanks and things. We couldn't because they'd sent those north and had, what did you put in there to keep the thing from freezing? Antifreeze. They had antifreeze in the water, we couldn't drink it. Anyway, we had a rough time in there. And finally, I hate to tell you this, but the last day, we were back about, far from here to the end of that dock where the boat's going out. We were all, our outfit was there. And we hadn't lost anybody. We were all well taken care of. So anyway, they lined up. I didn't count them, didn't have any reason to, but about 100 people, 90 to 100 people. There's old men, some of them looked older than you. And they had children in there that were not over 10 or 12 years old. I saw one there had 2 babies, holding the babies. And they were standing in a fairly like that, and all of them were screaming. They were hollering. I couldn't understand what they said. I don't know if it's Philippine talk or whether it's Japanese talk, but anyway, they gave a signal up there, and all of them were standing up. Some of them had crutches. I saw one girl that had 2 babies. She didn't live over 10 years old. Well, they shot it, killed every one of them. Every one, but at least 100 of them. They had about 3 Marines over there shooting. And damn, don't you know, they buried some of those things. They had a backhoe there, and they'd pick the bodies up and dump them in a hole. They had a big hole dug there. And I saw some of them that were actually screaming while they were burying them. It's the damnedest sight I ever saw in the whole Pacific. And of course, they had no cameras on that. They didn't allow any cameras on that island, so that thing never came out. People back in this country didn't know that they were doing things like that. So anyway, that was a terrible thing. And that was the worst operation I went on. That lasted, I think, 12 days. And that was called Pelelieu Island. That barge load came in there about the 2nd or 3rd day. And it came, had a big rock, as big as this whole thing is, that we tried to hide behind. It's about waist deep in water. And this barge came in, and it was hit with a Japanese shell, and everybody got off the thing. It was already grounded. They ran about 12, 15 men on that. They brought that barge load of ammunition. And I remember it distinctly as being 3 shells about that large and about that high, and there were 3 to the bunched up like that, 3 shells. And the whole ship was loaded with them. That barge, it was a barge actually, was loaded with them. And they jumped off the ship, off the barge, and that was the end of it. Well, the first thing I know, I was looking back there, and the damn thing was smoking. The engine room was smoking. The engine was in the back of the thing, of course. So nobody seemed to bother with it, so I knew something bad was bad wrong. So I go over there, wade over it about waist deep, and got up on the stern of that barge and opened the hatch door to the engine room, and the smoke boiled out of it. The damn thing was already getting hot. So I shut the door, and you couldn't see a thing in there on account of the smoke in the room. And I got down on the bottom deck there and felt around, and of course I knew a good bit about engines and all because I had something similar to that myself. And I felt around and felt the fuel line and cut that engine off. And went to the next one and cut that one off, stopped that in. Went to the next one and cut that one off. Then I hightailed it off of there. I came on, got back, and went to the stern there and got off and closed the door. And then I went on back to my station, and they came in there that night, got the barge off the landing there, and that was the end of that deal. So anyway, that's what they gave me that star for, that thing for. Well, it was a ship of, it was 40 feet from the deck forward to the water. She's that far up. And the reason I was telling you that, when we got hit at later on for that trip, they lost 30-some odd people, 33 people. I was the 33rd one. He thought I was with those dead people. And of course, as you see, I wasn't. It was 3 bombs on that ship, 3 500-pound bombs hit. And they hit on the port side about 10 or 12 feet above the waterline. Knocked all that section off. She tell you something. Anyway, they didn't lose the ship, but they ended the ship's ability to fight. They brought the ship on back to I think they went on into Pearl Harbor. That was a mistake that the gunners made. Well, the gunners didn't make it, but the officers on the deck saw what was going to happen. And there was 12 ships in there coming out. And this one was back in the back, one we were on. He got through and came on down, and they had a couple of minutes. They got on the ship with the guns, and they forgot to trip the ship fuse up there. They had to fire the ship from the bridge. They had to turn the switch on to fire this gun, so anyway, they didn't fire it. And that hit, and when they did, there were 2 bombs that went off together. They heard 2, one didn't go off. And bless Pat, I was up there with the other crew members, and I saw what was going to happen. So I threw my shell, as I had there to reload, which we never did. I threw it over my head and fell down on the deck. It fell backwards. And that's the only reason I got out of there, because the rest of the people were all killed. They killed everybody that explosion killed everybody that was on the deck. And there were 33, they counted 33. And we buried them the next day. And the sharks, it was unbelievable. They would jump almost that whole 40 feet and grab those bodies as we threw them in. And that was a terrible thing to see all that done. I tried to get the captain to freeze those bodies. We had an empty freezer down in the bottom of the ship, and he wouldn't do it. He said, no, he'd bury them all at sea. So that was the end of that. Well, we got on that ship, was the DuPage. She built in Pensacola, Florida, back before the war. And she was a little over, approximately 700 feet long. And she was, I've forgotten how many tons she carried her. The description of the ships in those papers there, you could get out a more definite size of the ship and all that. I know the main deck was 40 feet above the waterline, and she carried 2,000 troops when she'd make an invasion. And I believe we made 14 or 16 invasions, mainly in the South Pacific. The worst one was Pelelieu. It lasted 12 days and 12 nights. And on that one thing, They lost many First Marine soldiers. I think they lost about 10,000. What the statistics of all those battles are in there that you can, I'll let you have those if you'll give them back to me after you get through with them. And there's pictures of the ship in full detail. They even tell you in there how much fuel was used in those 2 years and how many miles they traveled in those 2 years. And all the things are in there recorded. We could carry 36 troops on our LVPs, and we had 12 of those LVPs on the ship to take those soldiers in and bring the casualties back out. And we were generally, I'd say, about 2 miles just outranged those Japs that were in there. And I say some of those landings didn't last but a day. And as I told you, the one there lasted almost 2 weeks. And Luzon was the last one that we went on. There were 16 ships that came off of Luzon, and that was the one that hit us. And we were the last ship coming out, and that was the one we got there. Lost 13 of the crew members there, lost all the people that were at gun stations. I more or less looked after those 50 people that we had carried on there. We were actually on the ship for transportation only. We weren't attached or assigned anything to do on that ship. Just get the troops off and get the wounded people back on. And that was, yeah, I was ended up like they transferred me out to the stern of the ship. I was they made me a chief boatswain's mate. So I had charged those 50 people that were in the forward part of the ship, and they had the chiefs that were assigned to that ship, attached to that ship, back there on the stern. We had about 15, 16 of us. We had our own mess and own food and all that back there. The plane came on and hit us, and hit us on the port decks, about pretty well to the forward part of the ship. They missed the gun turrets up there, but they came right after that. And they say 2 of the shells went off to the bomb, and the other one didn't go off. They got hung up in the lifeline of the ship, and for some reason was able to get up there, and they got me a pipe. It was about 4 foot long that stayed there. It was stuck in the holding thing there, and I got that out and managed to get it under the nose of that bomb, and I tripped it, and I think I hurt my back in doing so, because it never, from that day on, it bothered me, and I managed to get the nose of the bomb off overboard, and it went on down in the sea. That was the end of that. I never did go off. So the ship was on fire, and we got that put out, and they had to get all those bodies up, which is an unpleasant thing. And they said everybody that was exposed, either to gun stations or on the decks or whatever, they were all killed when that thing went off. Those 2 bombs went off together. Oh, yeah, well, he came out. Now, who's that out there? He wanted to know. I says, Hazzard. And he said, well, I'll be right out. I'll be right out. 65 years went out, and I ain't seen him since. He never did come back out. Nobody, no help, no nothing. He's the only one that come out, and he didn't help a damn bit. Of course, had he not turned that ship when he did, as soon as he saw that thing, saw the plane coming, he turned that ship to, let's see, he turned it to starboard, and that caused the plane to miss hitting us head on. So he actually saved that ship. But that was the last thing that the ship ever went on. That was the last invasion. He took it out of service. In forming this group down there in Camp Bradford, I think I told you that they took one person out of each state that volunteered to go into the amphibious thing, and they were forming the 3rd Amphibious. So he came in from Louisiana, from New Orleans, and was attached to that 3rd Amphibious. There were 50 people in that outfit, and they put me in charge. I was first boatswain's mate. He was one of the 35 people that didn't make it. That was on account of those 2 bombs that went off of that Japanese airplane. And so he got killed coming out of Luzon. He was on the stern of the ship. I was inside the chief's quarters on the stern, eating my dinner about 7 o'clock. It wasn't quite dark, and that's when all that took place. When we were in the Pacific, well, this was months before, we'd been out there a year, I guess, or over a year. We decided that if one of us didn't get back, the other one would go down there and talk to the parents of the fella, which we did. And that was quite a trip. And we got back, and of course he got killed coming out of Luzon, as I told you. And he got down there, and we started out from Georgetown, I did, had my ticket to go to New Orleans, and got down here to the bridge. I was driving by myself, and there was a car in front of me, a toll bridge, to go over there, and to Charleston, at the Cooper River Bridge. And the car in front of me, we were up on the bridge about, I guess half a mile, the first couple of spins, and there was a ship down below us, a Liberty ship, that had broken loose. I didn't know this, from Anchorage. He came in and hit the bridge, and knocked out a section, and lo and behold, right in front of me was not a pickup, but a station truck, station thing. It had 3 children, little children, 5, 6 years old, waving to me. Now, I was in the car by myself, and out of nowhere, the damn thing just disappeared. The car just was gone. And I stopped my car, and it jumped out, and about from here to that wall, I looked down there, and there was the ship. It hit it at the bridge and knocked that bridge out. And they never did see those kids or the parents. There were two people, grown people, driving the thing. So that was the end of that, going to New Orleans. I went into the Shim Creek. It was over there after I got there. And
backed off the bridge, or how did you get off the bridge?
I backed off. I was on the bridge, and I backed off. I even asked the man for my damn 50 cents back, and he wouldn't get to me. So I told him it cost 50 cents to get across it, and I didn't get that. He wouldn't even talk to me. So anyway, I got this colored fella. He just tied his boat up at Shim Creek. That was over a little ways from where we were. And he told me he was too tired to take me over to Charleston. So I gave him $5, which is a lot of money back then. And I got his boat and I rode over to the customs authority over there in Charleston. And as luck would have it, the taxi man got out and helped the fellow out the car. And I asked him, could he take me to the airport? He said he'd be glad to. So I got in his car and rode to the airport. And the plane is already started out to get on the runway. And I ran out there with my ticket and my suitcase. And the man, the pilot, saw me. And he stopped and let that thing down. It sort of looked like it was, steps stand up where he was. And he let me get on that plane. So he went on to New Orleans. And I got to New Orleans. I didn't get down there because he stopped in Jacksonville for some reason. But anyway, about 12 o'clock, we get to New Orleans. I get off that plane, had my suitcase, and walked over to where you get your baggage. And I looked over there and I saw the well-dressed girl and a mama. And I looked at her, and she had a black hat on. It was a big thing, like it wasn't feathered, it was just a flat, big. I looked up on her, damn, that's the prettiest girl I ever saw in my life. And I walked over and I told her that too. And her mother was there, and the mother looked like she was well shot. And then I told her about her son, how he got killed and all this, that, and that. So anyway, I kept looking at that girl. I said, damn, I can't get over there, man. How come I've been around all this time? I've been in New Orleans before, and I ain't never seen nobody as pretty as that girl. So anyway, I told her that too. And I stayed there about 2 days, and I left, and I came over back to Georgetown, and I don't think I unpacked my suitcase. So I said, yeah, damn, I got to go back down there. So sure enough, in about 2 weeks, I think I got a letter or two from her. And about 2 weeks, I go back to New Orleans. And I said, all right, and I got off for about 10 days. And I wanted a couple of things I wanted to do. She said, well, I'm really interested in what are they? And I said, well, one is I want to get a marriage license. And the other thing is I want to get you a pretty ring. For what? And I said, well, I'm going to marry you. Well, she gave me a little, not too much a thing, well, that's fine or something like that. So sure enough, I stayed down there, and I came on back to, I came back to Georgetown, got my stuff all lined up, the boat and all that, and I went back there. And I said, now, where do you get your license? Well, there's the courthouse right there. So I pulled up there and charged me $2. And I got the license, and I gave her the ring and so, and they got the preacher down there, and we got married. And we did good. We did real good. We were married, I think he said 68 years. And I don't remember one argument. It's funny, you get old, you forget a lot. But I had one argument, and my wife was back there one day, and she threw a cup at me, an empty cup. There was no coffee in it. It was just plain coffee cup. Boom. It hit that and fell on the floor. I picked it all up, the handle in the thing, and had it in my hand, and I handed that to her. And she put her hand out, and I put the stuff in there. And I said, honey, please do me a favor. And she said, what's that? And I said, next time you throw a coffee cup at me, get one of those old cups. Don't take the good china and throw it. And she laughed and threw the cup. And that was the end of that. Theda worked for the, who was that out?
General or
Who?
Adjutant, I don't know how you say it, General at Camp Lachey?
Yeah. She was Adjutant General Secretary, the main secretary for the outfit that shipped people out of the States, California and New Orleans. And she worked there 3.5 years, shipping boys to Africa and shipping things to Japan. 3.5 years she did that. So she had handled over 1 million troops in those places. And so that was, she 3.5 years. I had a brother that had the Chevrolet franchise in Chapel Hill. And that was when Charlie Justice was playing football up there for Carolina. And we decided to go up there and work in the automobile business, which we did. 242 Little Farms Avenue, New Orleans. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they give the preacher $20, which was a lot of money back then. And my 2 brothers came down for the wedding. Jack, he was the oldest one, and Westry, he was the middle child. I think we went to Paulie's Island and stayed for about a year. And then they came back down here and stayed right up the street a little ways. That's where I had the tugboat. I was running that tugboat myself, and I had a job with the paper mill over here, which had started in 1936, before the war. They got me a job over there, towing pulpwood, barges loaded with wood from Coosiehatchee, that's down in Georgia, up to Georgetown. And on the night of the 25th, I left Coosiehatchee with the barge by myself, bringing it back to Georgetown. And I came through Charleston about 1 o'clock in the morning. This was Sunday morning. And I had a little radio that I remember paying $15 for. We had it in the wheelhouse. And the thing came on there and says, we're now in war. And I said, what the hell is it talking about now in war? Hell, the Japanese have attacked at Pearl Harbor. And we found out later on that day that there were 440 airplanes, Japanese planes, that came up on Pearl Harbor and practically destroyed it. But I remember one plane went down the smokestack of the Amazon and the Arizona, which was a battleship, and he killed 1,200 people on that ship, which is unheard of. We didn't even know what the hell we were fighting about. And anyway, that went on that night, Sunday night, and I got to Georgetown the next day about 1 or 2 o'clock. And then I unloaded, tied the barge up and went on and found out more about what was going on. I didn't much care about it, to tell you the truth. I was in the hospital up in Portsmouth, having been shell shocked down there in Lady. So anyway, we didn't realize that 80,000 Japs had been killed from that bomb. They didn't tell us that right away. And I had no objections after seeing what I saw. The Japs got it at that other place, Pelelieu. And I didn't approve of that because it could have very easily taken those children or taken those helpless people, old people, and all that. They could have made prisoners out of them. But they didn't do that to kill that one of them. So I guess I had no fear of that happening to me. I never considered that. And I felt awfully sorry about those little girls, 12, 14-year-old girls carrying children to, to be killed. But I guess that's war, terrible part of the war. And I decided then that war is nothing but hell. That's all that is. Just pure hell. It affects so many people. It don't affect only the people that got killed, but just like Theda losing her brother, that was terrible on her. And also, what did we gain out of that? Now they make more Japanese cars than they make American cars. It don't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. But I'll be out of here before the next war, I hope. They got a program running on now. Unfortunately, you have to be 100 to get in the program. But if you're the oldest person in the United States, they'll give you $1 million. The government will. But you have to be 100 years old to get in the damn thing. And so I don't know, I hope I don't make that. I got 7 years to get up there, and I don't think I lasted. But dog, I don't know whether the little dog lasted 7 more years or not. I found out 2 or 3 things in my life. And one is about marriage. And I found out you get out of marriage what you put in it. And if you don't put something in it, you ain't gonna get very much out of it. And it goes for the wife and the husband. If you do something nice, hell, I used to get up every morning and I'd kiss my wife and I'd say, honey, you're the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I tell her that. I guess you got tired of listening to it. I don't know. But you've got to put something in there, something more than just hello and this, that, and the other. So I found that out, and a lot of people don't realize that. There's so many marriages that you don't make it, and you analyze it and find out, well, why did John get divorced? Well, hell, he's never home, or something like that, you find out. But just like this girl here, she goes out and works, she's happy, and she puts a great deal in her marriage. So she'll have wonderful children, and she'll be happy, and he'll be happy, and that'll be a successful story. So I learned that in life, and that's about all I learned. I learned that you can get along without your parents, because I had to make it from 2. So I always felt that I was an orphan. Nobody wanted me. My mother couldn't control it. She had three boys. Lost all 3 of them in that war, World War I. And we all managed. My brother, he's sharper than I was. He had a whole lot. He was 4 years older than I was. And my grandmother couldn't keep him. He was in school Asheville School for Boys at age 12, I believe. And they expelled him for catching rabbits up there. It's a country school. It's over at Hendersonville. And they put him out of school. Well, what does he do? He gets on a damn freight train. This is age 11, between 11 and 12. And he rides that freight train to Wilmington, North Carolina, from up in Asheville, North Carolina. He gets on the damn ship down there, tied up in Wilmington, and he goes to sea. They catch him 3 days out to sea, and they make him pass coal on his old coal burner to Germany. Went all the way to Germany. He got off the ship in Germany and got on the ship Argentina. And he stayed on that ship till he was 21 years old. The same ship all over the world. For about 10 years he gone. We didn't know where he was or where he's going or where he'd been. He came back, he was in Wilson, and he walked through a room. I was living there, and I walked through the room. I said, hi, or something like that. He said, brother, you don't even recognize me. I said, well, who in the hell are you? He said, I'm your brother. And I said, hey, Jack, glad to see you. 10 years. So anyway, there's some strange things, very strange things that happen in my life. And I guess those things make you what you are. You're either a good person or you're a bad person, or, you know, most of your good qualities come from your mother and father. They don't come from your brother or your sister. They come from them. We get up here, and we didn't have too much furniture to move. They had the bed and the icebox, I guess, and so forth. And we rented a place out in the country. My brother had a plantation out there, a chicken farm, and 10,000 white leghorns, white egg-laying birds. In the little house between the big house, Windsor, there's this old country place, and we lived in there for a couple of years, I guess. And the school bus would pick up the children and take them to school and all that. And that went on for quite some time. Then we moved into town, and they were looking for a probation officer. Well, they picked me out. I was probation. And I did probation work for 15 years. I've had a good life. I had 3 lovely children, and had several nice dogs. You know, and when you're orphan, you appreciate things. If your mama gives you an extra piece of cake, or you get this. I had an old lady, I didn't know who she was. And she called me in her house every day after school. I was in about the 4th, 5th grade. And she'd give me a peanut butter sandwich. And that was when times was rough. It was rough. I enjoyed that sandwich. Look forward to it every day. Peanut butter sandwich. Yeah.
That's probably, that picture's probably a little bit older than that.
She was pretty, wasn't she?
I was just thinking, that's a striking.
And she was still asleep when I came into
Well,
town.
wake her up now and get
I
it.
promise you, you'll have it before this weekend. And tomorrow's Friday, so
All
you'll
right.
have
You
it.
take the thing on.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Do you, and here, this is, when he talks about her brother, that's her brother.
The one who stuck all those pine needles in the same action.
Yeah.
He met him
New Orleans.
in New Orleans, and they became fast friends, and, you know.
And then you married his sister.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Well, that's the story I want you.
Well, and you would know
Yeah.
what beautiful is, so hey, I'm very complimented. That
Teenager.
In peace.